It can happen to anyone. There's no genetic, there wasn't anything. It just was a random intracranial brain hemorrhage. So I want to emphasize that it can happen to anyone.
And do you feel that randomness was something contributed to you by your lifestyle and the kind of way that you went about life?
I was a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Without me realizing that. Like I wasn't shifting, and I think I was continuing a lifestyle that was not able to continue in that manner. And this needed to happen for me to reset, reevaluate, repurpose, and continue just developing and being an amazing person, and having a better, more impactful and enjoyable life.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to Recovery After Stroke, a podcast full of answers, advice, and practical tools for stroke survivors to help you take back your life after a stroke and build a stronger future. I'm your host, three-time stroke survivor, Bill Gassiamis. After my life was turned upside down and I went from being an active father to being stuck in hospital, I knew if I wanted to get back to the life I loved before, my recovery was up to me. After years of researching and discovering, I learned how to heal my brain and rebuild a healthier and happier life than I ever dreamed possible. And now I've made it my mission to empower other stroke survivors like you to recover faster, achieve your goals, and take back the freedom you deserve. If you enjoyed this episode and want more resources, accessible training, and hands-on support, check out my Recovery After Stroke membership community. Created especially for stroke survivors and caregivers, this is your clear pathway to transform your symptoms, reduce your anxiety, and navigate your journey to recovery with confidence. Head to recoveryafterstroke.com to find out more after this episode. But for now, let's dive right into today's chat. This is episode 160, and my guest today is Christina DeVille, a self-confessed workaholic who experienced an intracranial brain hemorrhage in 2020, collapsing in her toilet and dragging herself to her phone to call for help. Christina DeVille, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Bill.
Thanks for reaching out and letting me know that you're out there and you need to connect and that you need to share your story. It's really, really important that people share their story and don't feel that their story is them making it about themselves or anything like that. It's really cathartic to do that. And it feels, for a lot of people who have been on the podcast, really good to get it off their chest. So tell me a little bit about what happened to you.
Yeah, and that's exactly the motivation when I reached out. I mean, I'm basically like a testimonial for your podcast. I mean, I've literally mainlined, like listening to your podcast, and it was such a great outreach of getting some, it's funny, like you kind of want to hear validation, right? Of like what people are experiencing to see if it validates what you're experiencing. And I found that so great. But then I also identified like things that helped me that could hopefully help others. So that was great. So my experience with stroke was April 23rd of 2020. I had an intracranial brain hemorrhage. It was quite crazy. I remember everything vividly like it was yesterday. Not sure if you recall where our world was in the state of the world on April 23rd of 2020. About a month prior was when we had the shutdown, right? So I am the senior vice president of a huge national residential solar company. So as you can imagine, it was very stressful. We're having daily evening meetings at 9 p.m. every night, trying to game plan what we're going to do. And me overseeing, part of a team, seeing, the sales department, sales kind of rules all, right? So as long as we have sales coming in, it keeps everything in motion. Well, when you have all these limitations, you have, things closing down, states shutting down, everything was just shutting down overnight. You have to start going, we got to stay healthy, which equals you got to, lay people off, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I had no business taking on the stress that I did, right? But, my company that I work with is just been my baby. It's been kind of something I've helped build for 5 years. So I just took on a lot of the stress that I probably shouldn't have. In combination with the fact that I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, it is extremely, extremely, extremely dry here.
Mm-hmm.
That was a shock to the system when you're coming from California, right? Unbeknownst to me, I wasn't really understanding that the difference of dehydration and the impacts that can really have on your system, right? And then, to keep going, I was drinking energy drinks. Specifically, there was one 5-hour energy drink that I was drinking more than once a day. And, what you don't see enough or you don't hear enough is these types of things, right? Water. What other forms of liquids are you consuming? What's in those liquids, right? Energy drinks are filled with B6 and zinc, which are natural blood thinners, and a lot of people aren't aware of that. I wasn't even aware of that. I'm taking natural, at least I thought, vitamins, where they're basically what my hematologist came to understand is I think I took a ridiculous cocktail of blood thinners, right? So it was a trifecta. The 24 hours before my accident was probably the most stressful day to date in work. So you have stress, you have dehydration, and I just took a cocktail of blood thinners. And that trifecta basically hit me. I was literally doing nothing. I was giving my dogs a bath. So I was bent down over my bathtub, giving my dogs a bath. When I went to try to stand up, all of a sudden I felt disoriented and dizzy. Didn't think anything of it. I just thought, I must have stood up too fast. And then there was this weird sensation from my right hip to my right toe. And it was like buzzing. It felt kind of like buzzy, right? And again, in my brain, I'm thinking, this is, I must have just got vertigo. This must be vertigo. I don't know,
Uh-huh.
And then I just remember not feeling okay. And then I literally decided, great idea, let's take a shower.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to take a shower thinking it was going to wash it away, no big deal. And it wasn't going away. So got out of the shower. And then I don't know what I was thinking. I decided to put the dogs in the living room. I closed, and mind you, I live alone. So I in a high-rise condo. And I put the dogs in the living room and I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to lay down. The minute I put my head on the pillow, there was just this voice in my head that was like, you know what, don't fall asleep.
Wow.
So I literally got up and I was like, I need to use the restroom. So from my bed to the restroom, probably 30 feet, maybe, physical feet. And I'm literally swaying back and forth to the restroom. And I'm just thinking, wow, this vertigo sucks. This is crazy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So then when I went to finally sit down in the restroom, it all stopped. So I'm like, cool, it went away. So in my restroom, a little bit in front of the toilet is a wall, right? So when I went to go stand up very confidently, my right leg wasn't stable. And I went head first on the left side directly into the wall.
Ooh.
And luckily, I think it would have been worse if I didn't break the fall with my left shoulder. So his head, left shoulder, I rolled onto the ground and I go, something's not right. So then my survival skills kicked in and I had to crawl back to the side of my bed where my phone was. So everything is still somewhat working. It hadn't fully gone out yet, but I could feel something was
Switching off.
happening.
Were things sort of just switching off?
Like physically, not verbally yet, right? But physically. So I was able to, luckily, I mean, this is what's great about sometimes your survival mode, right? Like I was able to crawl from my bathroom back to the side of the bed where my phone was. Literally, the minute I grabbed my phone, the whole right side went out.
Wow.
So I could only get up from here. I could literally only lift up my head, and my left arm was working to be able to grab my phone. So I'm sitting there on the ground, and I'm like, this definitely must be a sciatic problem.
I love it.
There's something wrong with my back.
Yeah, I love it. That's me. That's me all over again.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to call my dad, right?
Cool.
Have him come get me. It'll be fine. Call my dad. He doesn't answer. Call my brother. I'm like, hey, I need you to leave work. Come get me. I think there's something wrong with my back. I'm on the ground. I can't get up. And he goes, yeah, you shouldn't be calling me. You should for sure call like the ambulance. And I was like, no, you're crazy. I don't need to call an ambulance. It's not that big of a deal. I'm going to call someone else since you're not available. Call my dad again, doesn't answer. Call my stepmom, doesn't answer. Finally call my sister, who is a nurse. She's an RN. So I'm like, okay, I'll call my sister. She lives in California. And I'm telling her, hey, I think I either have vertigo or a sciatic problem. Tell her what happened and that I can't get off the ground. And she's like, that is neither. She's like, you either call the ambulance right now or I'm going to call the ambulance for you. Now, to get an ambulance to my building up to my house, it's not going to be easy. I'm locked in my room on the ground in a robe. I have 2 dogs in the living room, and they need to come upstairs, break in through my front door to get access to me. So then I finally had to call my front desk. And I think this is what kept me alive, is that I forced myself to keep my brain going, right? Called my front desk and I said, hey, I'm getting ready to, I'm completely coherent still. I'm getting ready to call the ambulance. I'm on the ground in my master bedroom and I can't get up. I need you to let them up, break into my front door, not let my 2 dogs get out of the house, and walk them to my master bedroom where I'm laying on the ground. So they're like, okay. So then I call the ambulance.
Let me intervene before we go to the next phase. I'm sitting here and I'm actually having a physiological response to what you're saying. I think I'm going back to my experience. I think I'm going back to what I did. All the dumb things, all the things that convinced me that nothing was wrong, that I needed to continue working, that I needed to go about business. In your role as senior vice president, your head probably does the majority of the hard lifting. There's not so much time for emotion. There's not so much time for, instinct. It's all about compartmentalizing. It's all about process. It's all about getting from one point to the next, whatever that point is. And it sounds like
ABC.
That's your skill, right? So what you do is you come up with scenarios that you can solve, and hopefully those scenarios work out correctly at the end of the day. But you've never dealt with a stroke before, so you don't know these brand new experiences, and you're just making it up as you go. And you sound like a politician, the ones that just make it up as they go. Oh yeah, well, let's try this. No, that didn't work. Yeah, that wasn't our fault. That was somebody else's fault. Let's try this, and so on. And you finally, it sounds like it took ages. It sounds like it took hours, excruciatingly long. How long did it take?
I honestly don't remember, but it felt like a decade. I mean, in that moment, I just knew once I couldn't get up, I knew that there was a series of things that I had to do to make sure I got people to me and I didn't pass out.
Yeah.
So it gets much better. So then,
did they get to the front door? Finally, did they get to your apartment front door?
Yes, but before that even happened, right after I got phone with the ambulance, I mean, if you would be like shocked with how many people I was able to call before I even got into the ambulance. I was still making phone calls in the ambulance because I felt like I needed to inform, because I work remote, right? It's COVID.
Yeah.
I needed people who are very important to understand where I was and what was happening and where I was going to end up.
Work people as well?
Work people as well. So the minute I got the phone with the ambulance, I recalled my sister back. I called one of my friends, and then I called a coworker. And I was extremely calm. Don't ask me how. And I'm like, hey, I need you to do me a favor. He's like, what's that? And I'm like, this is going to sound scary. So I need you to stay calm. This is what I said. I need you to stay calm. I telling him what happened. I'm like, I need you to inform our CEO, our CRO, people that are within our department. I think I had a meeting or something, like a video conference coming up with all of them. And I'm like, I need you to tell them what's happening and where I'm going to end up. Right. So he wanted, which I give him a lot of admiration. He too didn't want me to pass out before the ambulance came. So he's like, this is what I want to do. He's like, I want to stay on the phone with you until the ambulance arrives. So I said, okay. So I stayed on the phone with them until the ambulance arrives. Once they come in, I'm on a gurney and getting wheeled out. And at that point, I had already sent text messages to my dad and my stepmom. So, we're getting downstairs. I'm on my way to, in the gurney, getting into the ambulance. My parents show up.
Oh.
In the roundabout as I'm getting in the ambulance. Now, I don't know how the hospital situation is where you guys are, but at that time when COVID first broke out, it was extremely strict.
Same.
Like really, really strict. My dad wanted to get in the ambulance and they wouldn't let him. He's got a short temper. So I'm sitting there telling him, don't get up. Please do not get upset. Do not do anything. It's gonna get you, like, again, I don't know how. It's a pure survival instinct. So then get in the ambulance. They take me to a hospital. That was amazing. The minute I got wheeled into the hospital, I literally don't really remember anything. So it was April 23rd. Didn't really remember anything until May 1st. All
right. Let's pause there for a sec. So let me just update you with my level of stupidity as well, right? And and I say that lovingly because it's not stupid. It's something else is going on for us to try and work out, right? So I went to the hospital. I got diagnosed. I rang my wife. I lied to her. I told her I didn't get any results yet because it's too late in the evening, like it was 11:30 at night. Come and see me in the morning. And in the morning, they'll probably have a doctor come around and give us the results. So she was at home with the boys. I didn't want to startle her. I didn't want her to have a bad night's sleep. So the next morning she came. I gave her the bad news. I told her that I lied. And then I rang my client and I said to him, I've got to tell you something. I can't come to work today. And I started bawling my eyes out, started crying. And I said to him, there's something wrong in my brain. You need to take over the job that we're doing. There's 15 star people going to be there, all different trades and services. And we have to do this in one day. You have to do it. I can't do it because I can't get there. And that's how my day started. Phone calls, work, all the important stuff, I was doing all of that stuff. And then I told my wife to ring my mum and dad, but don't tell them, try not to tell them what was wrong or something like that. Okay. So they kind of lied. She kind of lied to them. My dad didn't take his blood pressure medication one of the days that he was coming to hospital. So he collapses in the rear of their home, in the rear yard, falls down, and this guy is 6'1" or 6'2", and he's heavy, real heavy. He's about 150 kilos, which I think is, close to It's above a couple of 150 pounds or something. I don't know what, 250 pounds or something. He's huge. And he collapses. And my mum rings the ambulance. They bring him to the hospital where I'm at.
Oh my God.
My mum comes up to see me. And I said, "Where's Dad?" She said, "Well, he's downstairs." I said, "Okay, well, tell him to come up." She said, "Well, no, he's in the ER and he fell over at home and he hurt himself and he's in hospital." I said, "What do you mean? I need to see him. Take me down to see my dad. I want to see where my dad is."
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
I go down, I see my dad. He's in
They
hospital.
let you go down. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
This was way before COVID.
Oh,
right?
this before, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think somebody wheeled me down. I was still walking at the time. I can't remember exactly what happened. I go down, I see my dad, and he's lying with all the heart monitors and everything on. And I'm, what the hell is going on? What is going on here? Everyone is just collapsing around me. And I had that thought of trying to keep everybody else calm because I had a feeling that they were all going to turn to water.
Yeah.
And they did almost turn to water. So anyway, you're now in hospital. That was me. I just wanted to let you know how similar, how similar.
How much we care about. I was so worried about stressing people out with what was happening with me.
Yeah.
Rather than worrying about what the heck was happening with me. Yeah. Like literally, I thought my dad, I'm not kidding. I thought my dad was going to have a heart attack.
Yeah. Same.
In the same scenario, I thought he was going to end up with, first of all, I thought he was either going to have a heart attack or he was going to get arrested. Like there was just one or the other because he was not, they're telling him no left and right. He couldn't come in the ER. He couldn't come see, and I could just, at that moment, I could see him just having a meltdown, right? So, and then next thing you know, I'm out and I wake up, still don't know what's happening. No clue. I finally wake up and it's like, I am totally flaccid from my head to my toe on the right side. Can't move. That is the beyond craziest experience ever that you could try to describe to someone. And there was just so many things that had happened at that moment. I have a pounding headache. My entire body feels like it's 105 because they couldn't figure out the blood pressure and my heart rate at the time. Because they're kind of testing things, medication with you wise, and it was just so overwhelming that I'm finally getting told like what's happening. I'm getting told how I behaved from April 23rd to May 1st. Right? Because there was a series of things that happened leading up to that. And, it's just crazy. When I was finally told what happened, I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because this is going to sound silly. I thought if you had a stroke, it meant you had a heart attack. Now, mind you, February of 2020, I attended a charity event for the Go Red American Red Cross event, where they had a full-on thing about strokes and women, being more victims to strokes. I was too busy eating lunch and chatting it up and networking that I didn't even pay attention. Now I'm a survivor. Yeah. And so it was kind of shocking, and then crazy. It's gonna sound bad. I had a really unhealthy work-life balance. I'm the first to admit it. It was horrible. in that moment when you have a sense of like you lost control, I had no movement to my body. My boss cut me off from work, so I didn't have work emails. I didn't know at the time. He told people not to text me. You know what I mean? There was all this stuff that happened that I wasn't aware of. So I finally am finding all this out when I'm waking up, and I lose it.
You're taking it personally? Are you getting upset?
I did. I got upset.
Wow, that they took it from you, or that you just couldn't do it? Which one?
There was internally, there was this sense of loss of control.
Yeah.
And it left me in that moment. It was by far the most vulnerable to date I'd ever been in my life. And I hated it with a passion.
If I told you back then, if I asked you, how did you identify? You would say, I identify as a senior vice president. With that comes a whole bunch of stuff. And if your work-life balance is out of whack, and the only way you identify is with the amount of people that call me, the amount of emails that get my responsibilities, the types of things that I do, and that's taken away overnight, your identity takes a massive hit. Like, yeah, who am I? Like, what do I do? What is this?
Yeah.
How can you take this from me? If I need this, this is what keeps me sane, alive.
The irony of what you just said is probably what verbatim I said. So I called my boss, just bawling. I was so upset. And I was like, how can you do this to me? Why are you doing this to me? And again, he's like, Christina, like, do you understand the severity of what you're going through? You were still hemorrhaging. It is not stopped. You are so sensitive. Like, please trust me. Everything is going to be fine. You're fine. You need to concentrate on getting better. But it's crazy what I thought, and like he sat there and prayed with me over the phone and got me to calm down. But yeah, I literally just thought I didn't want to accept what was happening whatsoever.
It was fairly early on.
Yeah.
I mean, accepting it is to almost admit defeat. And I think not accepting it is one of those things that helps us survive. Would you agree? Does that kind of help you survive?
So what was interesting about that was the more I would actually call it negative feedback I was giving my body with the way I was responding, the more things would not work properly.
The opposite.
I was that sensitive where, it's just things would just go, my headache would come back like this. I couldn't sleep. There was just everything would just go out of whack.
Yeah.
And I would get mad. So you don't realize in the moment that you're going against yourself. Like the only person that's being affected by this is you, right? So my aha moment, which is actually kind of not funny, but it is, was in the hospital. They give you a series of medicine, right? So once they take you off like the IV and all that stuff, they gave you something to help you sleep. Well, in that moment, it was maybe day 2 that they had given me Ambien. And my aha moment was the second night they gave me Ambien. It was probably 3:00 in the morning. Mind you, I'm in my bed. They have the railings, right? I'm flaccid on one side. And then there's, the door, the bathroom, like pretty decent way, right? I woke up on the ground in between my front door and my bed. Had no knowledge how I got there. And I thought, instantly I thought, you know what? I could have fell and hit my head. And I had no knowledge of how I got there. That was my aha moment. That was my moment where I changed my mindset and accepted what was happening. And I literally just said, okay, you're going to accept what's happening, but this is what you're going to do. You're going to refocus everything into making sure that you somehow, some way walk out of this hospital. And so then after that, I just changed my attitude. I prayed a lot. I just listened to meditations. Like, I don't know if you've ever saw the movie Kill Bill.
Come on. It's my favorite, one of my favorite films.
okay, so you remember the moment where she's talking to her leg
in the truck,
and she's like, move,
yeah,
move. That was me. I'm literally giving feedback to my body, just saying, you got to move, you got to move, you got to move.
I can relate to that a lot. So your analogy, the Kill Bill movie analogy, is it's complete and utter Hollywood bullshit, but that's fine. That's the whole purpose of that movie. But it actually derives from the reality of neuroplasticity and how it works. And if you imagine yourself doing something, that's firing off the same neurons and the same cells in your brain as if you were actually doing it. That's why meditation is so amazing. So when I was in hospital, I couldn't use my left side, and I had to learn how to walk again and use my left arm again as well. It took about a month before they discharged me. But when I had downtime in between rehabilitation sessions, I was imagining myself walking and meditating on that and listening to music while I was doing that in the dark, and then basically going through that process so that I can get to that point of when I actually get to walk, it's not fresh. My mind has seen this before, and then it's just taking over in the physical way. So that whole thing that you did is what I did, and what she did in Kill Bill is a real thing. Like, it does actually create neurons and connections and pathways. So it's a profound experience to go through that and experience it, but it's really better to know about it. So I knew about it. And because I knew about it, I actually allocated my time, that downtime, instead of watching, daytime soap movies or some junk like that. I
did the same thing you did. Yeah.
Allocated that time to YouTube and Google and just researched walking again, neurons, growing my brain, like all sorts of things. So I can relate to it a lot.
I had trouble visualizing because my brain was just like I was struggling with memories big time at that moment. So I was like, okay, I can't see this. I can't see myself running. I can't see myself walking. I'm going to ask my friends to send me any videos they possibly have of me dancing, walking, whatever, so I could remember what I look like.
Yeah.
And that helped me. Like, I don't even know how I came up with that, but I did. It's funny when you say the downtime. My door was directly across from where they had the PT.
Yep.
And I made sure everybody knew my agenda between the OT and the occupational therapist and the physical therapist. Historically speaking, when you have people in that realm, majority of them are going to be older. At the time I was 41, and unfortunately, not a lot of them are very motivated, right? So to get in the PT and the OT, when they saw how motivated I was like, listen, I don't care what I'm doing. If you see that I'm in my room and there's downtime, please grab me. Please hook me up to the NIM machines and do the shock, because the machine actually is what helped me get my arm back first. The second treatment that they did, each finger, and that is also crazy. I don't think people understand, when you go flaccid and this stuff needs to wake back up, it's not like your whole arm comes back. Your whole leg comes back.
No.
It's like each individual finger I just changed the way I looked at it as almost like this curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And it became kind of this solution, like you said, solution thing where I'm like, this is really cool. Each thing had to come back. So each part had to come back. There was a period where I had aphasia, and the whole thing, it just became this thing where I started to do all this research of like, it became my thing where I just wanted to know so much more about it and how I could get through my recovery. And another thing that was really great about physical therapy, where the muscle memory comes in, I had done Pilates in the past for years. I got fortunate. There was two ladies at the hospital who were PTs but had a Pilates background. So once they identified that I could do Pilates, they were using that to do the individual, leg work and stuff like that, which I contribute to what really helped me in my recovery, like big time.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you just took responsibility.
I did. And I was hospitalized from April 23rd to May 29th.
Yeah.
So it was a long time by myself, which a lot of people say how horrible it was you were by yourself. And I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like the fact that I'm an empath. The fact that I had it was uninterrupted, solely focused on myself and people that were there just to help me was exactly what I needed. I don't know if my recovery would have been the same.
I love it.
If I would have been allowed to have visitors.
Distractions and negative feelings of emotions and all that kind of stuff. There's certainly some people you don't want to have at your hospital bed. Absolutely. If you could get rid of them, that'd be great. There's some that you do, there's some that you don't. I know where you're coming from, but it sounds like you're a solutions-oriented person as well. It sounds like you looked for, well, here are the problems. Well, there must be solutions for them, and let's just run with it. And that's kind of me as well. My work meant that I just always fixed problems for people. So I just did what came naturally. It sounds similar to what you're doing. You're going, well, here's a problem. Focus. Thank you very much. Give me time and let's work it out. Yeah.
And in the defense of the people that were there for me, that really leveled up, they had every reason to panic. I mean, there was a time where I came close to not living. Like there was a moment, you know what I mean? And then I think I listened to your podcast about yourself where you were diagnosed with AVM, correct?
Yeah.
So early on when I was hemorrhaging with the first neurologist, he almost misdiagnosed me, saying I had an AVM, then saying I had to do surgery. Well, I wasn't cooperating. I told them, there's no way you're touching my brain. I don't remember this. So as a byproduct of that, they forced I don't want to say forced, I think it's forced. I was in no right mind frame for them to try to get me to sign over a power of attorney. So they had my sister come out to try to force me to sign a power of attorney, which I did ultimately, in case they did this surgery and I didn't come out okay. Luckily, I created enough noise, my sister created enough noise to where we got another neurologist who waited for me to get I don't know, did you have angiograms at all?
Yeah, through the groin.
That sucks, by the way.
Big time.
I had 3.
Wow. I had 1. Yeah. That's enough.
Yeah. Not fun. And mind you, it was okay because I didn't feel anything at first, right?
Yeah.
Like, cool, legs numb, we're all good. When that leg wakes up, holy cow, that was excruciating pain, right? But so anyways, luckily the second neurologist, who was fantastic, was like, he shouldn't have even diagnosed you for this. You were hemorrhaging like crazy. He can't tell. So I now, after this whole time, I had, a ton of MRIs, a ton of CAT scans, a ton of, 3 angiograms. We've identified I didn't have an AVM. But how scary is that, where you could get misdiagnosed for something like that, and they want to go in, they can talk about radiation. I mean, that's scary stuff.
Yeah, I had an AVM, and because of the bleeding, they couldn't actually tell it was an AVM. So they even told me that it might be cancerous, it might be a tumor, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just
Tuesday.
I'm like, far out. Okay, whatever. I didn't know what to say. So it took them 2 years to definitively isolate it and confirm that it was an AVM. And that perhaps it needed to come out. Over those 2 years, it bled out twice, and then it was microbleeding the entire time. But the only way they could tell was when the blood vessel decreased when the clot decreased in size enough as to not interfere with the MRI. That was the first time they could tell. And
it's just such a fine line.
Yeah. And the first hospital I was at, the doctors were extremely indecisive, and they weren't doing enough to allay my concerns about the other diagnosis, the potentially cancer one. And
Right.
it felt really strange about it. So I sacked them and I went to another hospital. But yeah, for 2 years, they didn't touch my head either. It was about almost 3 years after the first bleed
That's scary.
that they had. Yeah, so we didn't know. And I didn't even know that was a stroke. I didn't even know that it was a hemorrhagic stroke. Like, I didn't know. They didn't tell me for 2 years.
You're gonna laugh. I would argue with everybody and correct them when they would try to say I had a stroke, because I did not want to accept that I had a stroke. I didn't want to. I'm a pretty strong-minded person, and I literally was like, I didn't have a stroke. I had intracranial brain hemorrhage. I had an IBH. It's different.
Yeah.
I corrected everyone, and then I'll never forget the day that I finally accepted it. I cried and cried and cried and cried.
You said you were crying and crying, accepting.
Yeah, the vulnerability part, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I know people think that that's like a thing. Like, I fought tooth and nail against myself in the whole environment of dealing with the fact that I was so vulnerable was crushing to me. I know that sounds really crazy, but I would cry spontaneously. I would have numerous phone calls with people where I was just like, I'm so uncomfortable. This is so uncomfortable for me to be this vulnerable. And, it took a lot of therapy and everything else to finally look at it as like a superpower. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so crazy how, we do this to ourselves. We just get built like this. Like, one of the things I love about your podcast, which is also something that the world should really dissect, is you have a lot of A-type people who are workaholics who are having strokes.
No kidding. That's a massive risk factor.
Like, that is not discussed enough in my mind. Like, that is just, it's so crazy. And the other thing I wanted to ask you too, which I've tried to listen to a lot of them. I don't know if you've had people who had an intracranial brain hemorrhage, because I hadn't gotten through all of them. And then my big question that I'm curious about, I'm left-handed. I like to say that I'm ambidextrous, but let's be honest. If the stroke would have affected my left side, it would have been a game changer. Do you see any theme across the people you've interviewed where they've been right-handed and their left side was affected, or left-handed and they're not affected, but they had the numbness happen on the left side even though they're right-handed. They had the numbness happen on the right side even though they're left-handed.
No, I haven't seen a theme. I've definitely come across people who lost ability in their most dominant hand, and then they had to learn how to use their other hand to write and to do things.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen a theme, but I know where you're going with that, the possibility that perhaps it happens on one side. Now, what's interesting for me is that my right side, so this is something that I've concluded, is my right side tends to be the side where things go wrong on. So my bleed was on my right side.
You're right.
A thyroid nodule on my right.
And you're right-handed.
Yeah, and I'm right-handed. And I have a couple of issues that I've related to my right side my entire life. And they tended to play out more. I've noticed them more than anything else. Now, maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know. Maybe somebody else listening out there might have had a similar experience. I don't know. But I know where you're coming from. Like, I get what you're saying. Also, with the type A situation, the type A stuff, I mean, the little events that happen in our lives slowly shape us. And then before you know it, I don't think you're a type A personality at 5 years old. But before you know it, you get shaped.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
I think you move into that space. And
maybe about 10.
Yeah, maybe you move into that space at some point. But what's interesting about that is that the World Stroke Organization says something like about 85 or 90% of strokes are preventable. So most of the strokes that are occurring, we're causing to ourselves. Now, with an AVM, it's likely that AVM might bleed. That might bleed. So it's genetic. But I did a hell of a good job to create the perfect storm around it. Working too much, smoking.
You were smoking, yeah.
Drinking, but not excessively. Not sleeping enough. Not eating properly. Being angry all the bloody time. And that meant that most of the time I was getting angry was because I didn't have emotional intelligence. I used to take things personally.
Right.
Even when kids did something which was just kid stuff, I'd take it personally and go nuts and lose my shit over it. And it wasn't until the stroke and my brain switched off that the emotional side of me, the vulnerability side of me kicked in. And I started doing heart work. I started doing emotional intelligence upgrades. And then I was able to go, you know what? That kid who is my teenage son now is not being an asshole. He's just being a teenager. Stop taking it so personally and start apologizing for being an idiot.
Yep.
And that's what moved me from going back to the old behaviors that were treating my body really terribly and affecting it. And I wasn't noticing how it was tearing down and wearing down my body. So one of the big shifts in me was that becoming vulnerable and brave enough to admit I was wrong, to apologize and not accept an apology back, and to just make it so that it was about other people and it wasn't about me all the time. And I realized my wife sometimes goes through terribly shit days and it's not about me, it's about her. And I've got to give her space to just deal with what she's dealing with and get over what she's dealing with in her own way and stop pushing myself on her. And it was, these are my biggest lessons. This is the thing that has moved my recovery on further because my personality is similar, but it has vulnerability and emotion in it now where before it didn't have it. And that,
it is the most amazing thing for me to like literally tell people that now. Like I'm like, hey, I'm super vulnerable. Like this, you know, like this thing, it's just the delivery now is just calmer and the way it comes out. You know, I wasn't so much me. It was just, you know, it was this taking things to heart. Like when I remember vividly my chest burning when it came to certain things. And that was part of what was eventually building inside of me. I remember not breathing correctly. I developed being a clavicle breather, which was contributing also to my migraines. So I had to change so many things to try to make sure that I never had to experience these things again, right? You know, I was very reactive when it came to stress, like when it came to work stuff, and very dominant and very, you know, I had no business getting emotionally attached to outcomes that I had no control over whatsoever. You know, couple of things fueling up to it, which I don't know how, I do believe that there has to be a connection to me having such a serious health issue that required me to shift. I had a series of things that happened, you know, throughout my life that helped me develop having mental and emotional fortitude for the most part, right? You know, I had a lot of trauma, a lot of loss, and one of them being my mom. I lost my mom in 2009, and I didn't subconsciously realize how that was really affecting me as a person. I was a walking shell of a person. So work replaced, you know, that unconditional everything. It became my parent. It became my child. It became my relationship. I just didn't want to deal with anything. And that became my center of attention. And that was it. That was all I saw. And I didn't realize that. So when you say you apologize to people, I literally went back to probably a few ex-boyfriends and I apologized.
Wow.
I was like, I'm sorry. I was just an empty shell. And I apologize for how I showed up. You know what I mean? Like I didn't realize until I had to have. So it's funny. I make a joke that I think my mom was sick of my behavior and that I wasn't shifting on my own. That she finally said, "Guess what? I'm gonna knock you right upside your head." And I was an athlete growing up. I've done a lot in my life. I have never had something physically take me down. So when you physically cannot move, you have no choice but to face everything.
Mm.
And that was the greatest gift I could ever ask for.
It's so weird to hear you say that. It's my experience too. And lots of stroke survivors say the same thing. And it's just, I don't know, but that's the way I see it. The head switching off with the bleeds in my brain made it so that my body could come back to life and talk and let me know what was going on. And I hadn't paid attention to it. And I used to take things personally, and my emotional experience was just shit. You said something to me, I would erupt. Yeah, I would be personally offended and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, I don't know what that was about. So now what I apologize for is my behavior. And I just say, look, I'm sorry for the way that I behaved in that situation. I'm not taking it their part. It's up to them to apologize for that.
Totally.
I'm apologizing for my part, and that's it. I'm leaving it at that. I should not have behaved that way.
Right.
So it does create a lovely intervention, because then it creates space for them to apologize too.
Yeah.
And it diffuses the whole situation.
Just when you're both like this. So it's funny you mentioned that, because historically speaking, my sister is 5 years older than me. She started a family very young. So I'm in my, 40s. I'm single. So, granted, we're family. We had a lot of a very combative relationship, because we just didn't have things in common, didn't know how to communicate. So when I woke up and she was the point of contact of who I'm leaving my whole life and everything in her hands, it was not comfortable for me at first, right? And it continued to be really combative. And it wasn't until I got out of the hospital that I eventually when I had the opportunity to travel, she was the first person I went to stay with, that we sat down, talked everything out, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for her and one of my girlfriends who really just dropped everything to be there, along with everyone else in my life. Like that, I hate to say this, but I literally thought I was on a mountain by myself, with work, with life, and I just thought that was just where I was. So the incredible support system that I had, that was there this entire time, right? Between my friends and family and work, was just absolutely jaw-dropping. Like, it was just so amazing. But it's just, the point of it is, it's just so crazy what we can build up in our own brains. It just was, none of the things I thought were reality were reality.
It's just bullshit stories that we make up to convince ourselves that we're right, what we're doing is okay, and everybody else is wrong. I went to counseling. So my first bleed was at 37. My awakening was at 37 after that first bleed. And then after the second bleed and after the third bleed, it got, I become more and more awake, and I started to just become aware of things that I had never been aware of that were always there. But when I was, I reckon 31 or 32, I was at counseling, and I'm writing about this in my book at the moment. It's so it's fresh in my mind. And counselor said to me, she leaned forward. We had a really cool relationship. She was an amazing lady. She passed away about 1.5 years ago. And she moved forward and she said, just before the session ended, and she goes, is it possible that it's not them, that it's you?
Yeah. Not funny.
I'm going to swear for the first time on the podcast, I think. I'm going to use the F-bomb.
I like the F-bomb. We're good.
And I leaned forward like I would to a friend of mine who, says something to rouse me up. And I said, fuck off.
That's funny, because that was the first thing I did. I actually looked at myself and I'm like, you did this to yourself. This is your fault. That's what I said to myself.
Yeah. And then I got up and I stormed out of there. And
Sorry, hold on one second.
Okay.
All right, good. My dog will start barking, so I figured I might as well just put her in my lap just to get. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, I've leaned forward. I've told her where to go, and then I got out of there. I paid her. I got out of there, and I was just shitty on the way home. And then for the next session, I had to contemplate this possibility that it was me this whole time. And
right.
By the time the next session came around, about a week or two later, I had really contemplated that, and it occurred to me that maybe it was me, and how can I remedy this? What are the parts that I'm doing? What is it that I'm doing that is making them react that way to me? So am I playing a role in their behavior to me? And of course I am, because it's a big loop. All our behaviors in all our relationships are a loop. They need me to act like that so that they can act like that, and vice versa. So that's that. Being able to apologize is the part that ruins the old loop, that destroys it, and then they don't know how to behave, so they also chill out and come to you at a nicer level, at a different place, and from their heart rather than from their head or from their gut, reacting. So that's been my experience, and I'm grateful for the lesson. I really am, because I don't know what would have happened if I didn't experience a stroke at 37. I don't know how I would be at 47. I don't know if I'd be alive, because I was just existing. I wasn't really being. I wasn't doing the human being part. I was just doing the human existing part.
Right, same. It is funny, energetically. And I think people don't. I believe in energy, right? I believe that you have an energy. You know what I mean? So my energy changed, which then the people around me felt energetically there was a difference. So they the relationships, the way we communicated, the way we were together, it just all became much calmer.
Yeah.
And and I didn't see that before.
I'll tell you why. Because that thing that people knowingly relate to, we have an energy. That's true. So there's an organization in the States called HeartMath, and HeartMath research the heart. And what they've found is there is an energy field around the heart that reaches 2 meters, or for you guys, it's probably 2 yards or something. Maybe it's 6 foot or something, around the outside of our body. And if you're in an angry state, the frequency that you vibrate at is a different megahertz than the frequency that it vibrates at if you're in a compassionate state or a loving state. So it's not just this thing that we imagine energy, like it in fact happens. So
like
when
literally,
when you go to a party and you can look over at the other side of the room and say, the life of the party is over there. There's a guy or a gal going nuts.
It's just energy force,
And they bring everybody
vibration.
They bring everybody into the room to a next level. The party goes off, and it's memorable for the right reasons, right?
Right,
well, when you go into a party and a fight just happened, the energy level drops. And the reason being is because the vibration, the actual megahertz, and they can measure this, right? The actual megahertz drops to a point, and that infects everybody else in the room, because of course it does. It makes sense. And then the party loses its vibe, and it loses its amazingness, and it becomes something memorable for the wrong reasons. So it's not just an instinct or a feeling that you have that you're trying to express.
It's a real thing.
It's a legitimate thing, and we can change the vibration of the argument, the conversation, simply by becoming mindful at that moment, dropping into your heart. And the way to do it without actually giving it away that you're doing it and going into a meditation is you just put your hand on your heart, and you're shifting automatically the way that you're expressing yourself and where that expression is coming from. You're activating your heart, and your heart usually it wants to do loving and compassionate things. It doesn't want to do crazy and angry and fighting things.
It's funny. Before my stroke, I was, like I said, I could elevate. I could really quickly. I don't have the same reaction anymore. Like it literally, if I start to get worked up, it just naturally kind of, I calm down, like I'm way more aware of it now. And I just naturally just calm down more faster. Like I just don't get to that, that level anymore, which is great. Back to the energy stuff, I believe in the energy stuff so much that, I created a team of people around me to get me to where I was. I was in the hospital for the length of time that I was able to accomplish, walking out with a 3-prong cane as well as an AFO. And mind you, I had no feeling from my knee to my foot still, but I still accomplished my goal, right? And then I just immediately, I didn't even sit still. I basically went to every single specialist. They told me anything that ended with an OLGY, ology, anyone, I had to go see. And then I immediately got enrolled in physical therapy. I found a Pilates instructor who had a physical therapy background, and I got a Reiki coach.
Oh, Reiki.
And a therapist. And I was just like, that's it, we're doing this. Like, and I just didn't stop. And I still have all of these people in my system. They're still part of my network of me evolving, because I'm not fully healed. I still have a drop foot. So my right leg, I'm still experiencing drop foot. So I'm not able to run, wear heels, which to most people, that doesn't really matter. I'm 5'4" on a good day. So heels were like an identity, right, for me. So, and then, not being just, I don't live in a world of limitations. So having like still my legs still working on developing, I'm still just constantly trying to figure out solutions. Okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. And that's kind of what I've just continued to do. Just never stop. I haven't stopped or given in to the thought that, there is no full recovery or nothing. That's just how it's going to go for me, right? I don't know how long it's going to take, but I won't stop until I have full recovery.
It's a lifetime thing, and it's a lifestyle as well, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you're supporting.
That was the most shocking, was the lifestyle change for me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I love that. You said Reiki, the most inexplainable, unbelievably weird, strangest, craziest, difficult, crazy thing with such amazing results for me anyway. And I don't know how to explain it or describe it. I've got no idea about it, and I knew nothing about it before stroke, and you would never have caught me dead in a Reiki practice or session before stroke. For some reason, man, it really does resonate, and I can only explain that it helps shift energy. That's the only thing I can explain it as.
I learned to not tell people. I'm like, hey, if you're open to it, just go do a session. Tell me when you walk in the door, if you feel one way, when you walk out the door, you feel different. That's all I need to know. That's really it. That's the difference. And, as much as I appreciate going to therapy and everything, or having a therapist to talk to, that I crave going to Reiki. You know what I mean? I just automatically know that energy shift is going to come with it. You know what I mean? And that was powerful for me, to have that. And really, really, really helpful for me. It's one of the things I wanted to get back to the breathing part, because I struggled. I had to relearn how to talk really well, again, because my face was still a little droopy. And again, that bothered the heck out of me. But the breathing was harder than I realized, to relearn how to be a diaphragm, like breathe through my diaphragm versus my clavicle. So I did a ton of research, and I ended up finding a breathing tool online that single-handedly, and this is right leading up to me doing Pilates, because Pilates helps with breathing, helped me to chill out and be able to be really good at breathing. And I still wear it for when I get really stressful. I don't want to butcher the name. It's called a Komusu, Komuso. So it's the design is to mimic I think it's a Japanese flute. but really it's not a flute at all. You use it to breathe into. So you do a series of breathing in through it, and then a series of breathing out through it.
Mm-hmm.
And you do it till you calm down.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. Like it worked. It's just crazy to even, I know it sounds like not real. I've recommended it to people that I knew that were having a hard time with stress during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And literally they trusted me, thank God. And it's worked for them. And I just thought, wow, it's just so amazing to be able to find things that can help you.
And it's so amazing to be able to learn how to breathe. I mean, it sounds weird.
Think about it. I know.
But it's true, right? If you're not breathing properly, you're increasing potentially your heart rate, your cortisol, stress hormones, your blood pressure. And that is not oxygenating your body properly, and you're not oxygenating your brain properly. You're not oxygenating your organs properly. So that if you aren't doing that, then the body is not able to work optimally. And in stressful moments, it's not able to do its job, and it's coping.
You're stroke.
Well, yeah, as best as it can, right? And it's not coping. It's not coping the way that it would be if things were more chilled. If you were oxygenating your body properly, then you're getting lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, lower stress and cortisol hormones. And that means you're able to sleep better at night, which means it's going to start that beautiful cycle again of being better. And this is the whole thing. People don't realize that stroke recovery, there's an aspect of it that's expensive, that costs money, physical therapy. There's a lot of it you can do at home. It doesn't cost you anything. You just got to learn how to breathe again. And if you think you know how to breathe, you probably are doing it wrong. If you haven't actually
100%
spent time learning about it, you're most likely doing it wrong, because most of us are. That's what happens in these high-paced, crazy Western cities where it's just go, 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 forever, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's just what happens. And you don't realize it, but you get sucked into your breathing patterns change. Shift that, everything changes.
Looking back, I mean, I grew up in a very obnoxiously loud family. So I'm a loud person as it is. And, if I'm in loud environments, I would just automatically try to talk over the other loud environments, not even thinking. So I would strain my vocal cords so much that I would lose my voice often. I would have a migraine and I would lose my voice. Knock on wood, since I, relearned all that, luckily it's been so much better. But you don't even think about what you're doing to yourself.
You're my sister from another mister, man. You just described me. That's exactly what I used to do. I used to get to that point where I would scream so much that words would stop coming out. And I was still doing the screaming face, but there was nothing coming out.
Oh, same. Absolutely the same. Like, even when I lose it, I would still try to talk. Like, it's just so crazy. There's because I deal with business and has constant things. I used to always joke with people that the inflection of my voice just never changes. Because whether I'm really mad and I'm yelling at you and I'm cursing, or whether I'm just saying hello, more than often it's probably going to sound exactly the same, right? So, and that was just one of the things I thought was funny. But now I'm like, I have PTSD from screaming. Like, I do whatever I can to not get a migraine. When you have a migraine for 3 weeks straight, you do not want migraines. That is for sure.
I notice it now. So amongst everything that we've said, all the things that I've learned, like, I'm still not perfect. I still stuff up. I still have arguments with my wife. I still do all the stupid shit that I used to do, but I don't do it as much as I used to. In fact, I do it very little, but I still find myself there sometimes. So most recently, if I've had an argument with my wife, and usually it's always about dumb stuff, I get to that point where I notice immediately what it does to my body, my head, and I can't actually, after arguing with her, I can't actually be upright. I've got to go lie down. It has such a massive impact.
Now we have we now have this physical impact that we've never noticed before.
Yeah. And that's what, I'm kind of grateful for that, because every time I go through that and I have to lie down and I can't bloody move, I'm like, this is not good. This is another reason why I should stop doing this. Plus, I'm being an idiot to my wife, but I also need to stop doing this because it's no good to me.
Right.
And it's
I mean, I'm not perfect, but I've often joked, and you know, I'm being serious, that the reason why I am not fully healed and I still have this reminder is because maybe I haven't fully learned my lesson. You know what I mean? Maybe my body's like, nope, you're not ready. You still need to work on yourself. You know, do this, do that, do this, before we allow you to be, you know, out and about doing whatever you want. Because, you know, the one thing that I can admit that I struggle with not having the physical part being fully recovered is, you know, I was a very independent person. I would travel by myself. I have really good, I was raised to have really good awareness, street knowledge, you know what I mean? So have common sense, and in environments where I felt like I could protect myself. Well, that gets challenged when you have a leg that's not working and you can't run. Like, I can't run away. Someone would for sure catch me. Let's just say that. Like, there's just no way. So there is this sense of independence that still gets really, really, really challenged. That I on a daily basis have to work through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But you know, I literally got a lot of tattoos, these little ones, to memorialize my experience. One of them being, it says surrender. Because that was the first thing I said to myself when I was on the floor. And I finally got back in bed. I was like, you just need to fucking surrender. Just stop doing this. And I often have to remember that to myself. Like, you know what? You just got to continue slowing down, taking day by day. Because, like, you know, I did everything in my power to get back to work, which is really interesting. My situation was a little different, where, you know, in the United States, we have this thing called FMLA, which is a federal backed program for when someone has like a major catastrophe. Well, when that was up, that would meant that my company was going to have to start paying for whatever happened. So I wanted to make sure I got back to work, you know, in time to where I was in a good place. I made sure I did whatever I had to get the write-off from my neurologist. But, you know, my accident happened in April. I was back technically in August of that year. Mind you, I'm working remote. And thankfully, I can say this now, my work was still not convinced that they could trust me. Even though I was back to work, they did it to pacify me, I think. They weren't giving me work to do. So that was an interesting thing that I had to eventually look out from a different perspective and respect what they were doing. Like, anyone involved with what I had to go through, which everybody was involved throughout the whole process, they did not want me to get back to that place again. So they protected me more than I realized, and just they forcefully slow played giving me work to do. Right. And I remember just being like, why are you guys not giving me work? Like, what is going on here? You know what I mean? It's just so funny. And now I can look back and go, you know what? They're just smarter than I am.
Yeah, they could see what you can't, and they were looking out for you. They had your back, so that's pretty cool. So, and it's early, you know. I mean, 4 months back at work. That's look, it's too early, but I get it.
Yeah.
And even now, you're only 16 months out, and like it's early days, and you've done a lot. You've overcome so much. You've become aware of so many things. You know, your mindset changed completely. You've dropped into your heart. You're connected with your heart. You know, you've used your instincts wisely to guide you through some of the most crucial times. You know, you meditated. You focused on learning how to use your parts of the body that were gone again. You know, you surrounded yourself with an amazing community from every aspect, 100%. Everywhere. You know, and it sounds like you're well on the way of shifting from being somebody who's just living like this personality corporate life to somebody who's going to live a more vast, more beautiful life rather than just a work related one. And
yeah,
imagine
I
what
love
life will be like 5 years from now.
Yeah, it's such an aha moment when you're like, oh, huh, I literally, it just doesn't, I don't have the same connection anymore to work. And it's such a great feeling. Like I now have that opportunity to bring in relationships and be present and really, I never liked staying home before. Now it's like my temple. I love being home. You know what I mean? So it's just little things like that where I had no clue how I was showing up and what I was doing.
I was going to say, we tend to be narrow-minded because I don't know why. I mean, everyone has their own reason why. But for me, imagine me dying at 37 because of this bleed, right? That was nearly 10 years ago. Imagine me dying at 37. What would they say about me? He used to work a lot. Yeah, congratulations. Yeah. Oh, he was an asshole to his kids. He yelled and screamed at his wife. Well, what the hell would they say? Oh, yeah, we had a few beers with him. We used to love getting drunk with him or stoned or whatever. And it's like, really?
Where's the depth?
Yeah.
Where's the depth? Where's the memories? Where's the, agree. Like, I couldn't even, like I said, I'm just very grateful that I have the opportunity. What's so great about your podcast though, is like I am 42 years old. I consider myself young. I have a great group of friends and I don't know anyone in my circle who's had a stroke at my age or around my age or younger. So again, there was still that isolation part, right? Mm-hmm. And your podcast gave me the validation that I needed to go, you know what? I'm actually doing really, really good for my circumstances. And, and then I also have a place that I think I included the link for the website where this place made me realize the extreme opposite of what can happen to you when you're in stroke, when the stroke happens, which you've had a couple podcast readings where people have had aphasia or really serious side effects that you're like, okay, this is the reality. It doesn't, any one of us who has a stroke could have been one of those people. Mm-hmm. The latest place that I actually pay out of pocket to go is a nonprofit called Driven LV. L is in Las Vegas. And they deal with a lot of people who had head trauma, spine trauma, and then stroke victims or stroke survivors. Majority of the people that go to this place are all now quadriplegics. Mm-hmm. So that includes stroke survivors who are normal, who then became quadriplegics. Like that right there alone was like, aha, got it.
It's random. This thing is random. Yeah. And we got the randomness that meant we can talk on a podcast and still be here. That's what I got out of stroke. It's like completely random. And I got the lucky version of it. And it's like, okay, so I've got a responsibility now. What's my responsibility? Is part of it is to talk about the topics on behalf of stroke survivors that can't be on my podcasts. The ones that can, great. You guys talk for yourselves. But the ones that can't, we talk on their behalf as well. They get to hear, hopefully, and they get to feel like they're part of a community. And if they reach out, I'll get them on the podcast. If they can talk or they can't talk, we'll use a machine. I don't care. So
I love that episode, by the way. That episode where you had the guy on the machine, I was just like, oh my God, that's amazing.
He's a legend. I mean, on Instagram.
He was funny.
He's hilarious. The guy on Instagram is an absolute nutter. I mean, he's an amazing bloke. I would love to have a beer with him in person. I mean, I reckon him and I could be great friends because he's got a sick sense of humor.
I love that.
Recently, he fell off his wheelchair, his electric wheelchair. He smashed his head on the ground and he's posting photos on Instagram of the bleed and how it repaired and healed over 5 or 7 days. And then when he fell on the ground, he said he was laughing his head off. And it was the laughing that made him fall out of the chair. Something funny happened. I don't know what. He's just hilarious. So to not give a person like that, or any person, an opportunity to express themselves, I think is a real tragedy. If somebody's isolated and they want to express themselves, they need to come on my podcast. We'll work it out somehow, you know? And that's why I love it when you reached out, you know? That's why I loved it, because it's like somebody wants to share and get this thing off their chest. I do it every single episode. It's 160 episodes nearly coming up, and I get to do it every single episode. And that's why I started it. I can't imagine telling my wife every single day what this stroke has done to me and how it impacts me. She's not going to want to hear it, and fair enough. So this is my outlet.
They don't really get it. Like, I love my friends and family.
And they shouldn't.
And I appreciate sometimes where they want to tell you what you want to hear, but they don't, you know, sometimes really want to hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know, like, it's funny. I heard this on one of your other episodes where it's like, I don't want to be treated different, but I am different. You know, and
different than what you were. You're different than what you were.
Yeah.
So you have different needs and different requirements. So I'm the same person. We are friends exactly like we were, but I'm a little bit different. So I can't go on that boozy night out with you. And don't take it personally when I say no.
Yeah. I remember the first time which you brought this up. I remember that I remember wanting, I had hit a milestone of something where I think I had no longer needed to go to any of the doctors, although the medication part made me really mad. When they were like, okay, you don't take any more of these meds, like the Keppra, that bothered me so much, because that was something my mom, who passed away from brain cancer, she had to do Keppra. So that really triggered me. But, you know, when I got told by my cardiologist that he's like, okay, great, you're doing fantastic, but you're going to stay on this medication, which is atenolol for your blood pressure and your heart rate. It's like 12.5 milligrams a day for the just in case.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, I didn't have to take this medicine before. I'm fine now. I checked my blood pressure. I don't want to take this medicine. So it's just those little things that you don't even think about that was really interesting to me. But, you know, the first time I had a drink, they warn you about some of these things that you have to, the first time you do anything involving your heart or stuff like that, they're like, make sure you have people with you, make sure you're sitting down. So it's going to feel like it's 6 drinks in one. That was really interesting to me, like how it affected your equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm fine now, but obviously I don't drink I don't do benders, I don't do any of that, right? But it definitely did change my lifestyle in that way, especially with the fact that I have a leg that's not fully recovered.
Yeah,
So,
the last thing you want to do is be
don't think
half
it's a bad
drunk.
thing.
The last thing you want to do is be half drunk, go for a walk, and then you trip over because you're half drunk and your leg is different from what it was. So that's really simple for me as well. My leg is different. It's not visibly different. This is the difference. So people can't see it, right? So when I have one drink, I feel like my left side's already drunk, and that means my balance is off, and that means I can't feel my leg properly, and that means I can fall over and hurt myself. I don't want to end up with a smashed head open or anything like that again. So if I am going to drink, I'm going to drink at home with people around me.
Environment.
Yeah, where I'm just going to have a little bit just because everybody else is, and then I can just, you know, feel like I'm part of the group or whatever, you know. And it's good to have a drink every once in a while. I enjoy a gin and tonic or something along those lines every so often. But for the first 3 or 4 years, I didn't drink anything. So the first drink back was a really strange one. That was
crazy.
Far out. That was such an experience. Cheap date. I tell you what,
for sure.
If I was dating then and somebody came and took me out for a drink, that was it. And they bought me a drink. We're done. One drink. Let's go home. I'm actually drunk.
I was so protective of myself that I didn't want to put myself in certain environments because I didn't want to be that vulnerable or that way in public. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I had my first drink I had with a girlfriend at her sister's house, and I ended up staying the night. But I was like, whoa, this feels crazy. Tastes the same, which was fantastic, but it didn't, it just kind of, it just teaches you to slow down. Like for me, when I go out too, like, let's say I do have a couple drinks, I know at some point I'm going to need to grab someone's arm. Or like just different, like there's just so many things you just never have to think about beforehand. Like when I approach a curb, it's like I have to stop and adjust myself to then step up on the curb. It's just so thoughtful how everything you do all day long. It's just such a presence that you have to think about that no one else has to see, do, or worry about in their entire life. It's so bizarre to me.
Tell me, as we wrap up, because we've been talking for ages and we could probably talk for even longer.
Yes. Yeah.
As we wrap up, how do you deal with, because this is something that's come up with one of my coaching clients recently. So, like you and I, he's had a stroke, and the main thing that he's left with, it's still pretty early on for him as well, is the fatigue and, the wooziness and the brain kind of sort of still resetting. But he's got numbness in his foot, just in his foot. Like he said, it's about this big in one part of his foot, but he focuses on it all the time and it's really stressing him out. Do you pay attention to the before and after, and is that challenging to you, or do you just, this is how it is, let's make the most of it? Like, how do you work through this very real difference between your leg, the way that it was, and the way that it is now with foot drop?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a constant like this, right? So I know that there are things so one of the things that I end up getting is I end up getting one of the machines to do the shocking to my leg.
Electrical stimulation.
The electrical stimulation. So I've been there's times where I won't do it, and there's times where I'm going to, I'll start back up and doing it. So it's just continuing to utilize the tools that you have to do the things you need to do to help your legs, right? Or if something's not working, sometimes I have to tell myself, okay, in this very moment, there's probably a reason it's not working. Go lay down, chill out, meditate, go listen to some positive affirmations, and just because I now understand when you start working against yourself. So I guess for me, like if I had to tell someone else outside, like sometimes these things are just meant to be there to happen, and you just gotta calm down and reset, right? So is he having numbness in his toe?
Yeah, he has numbness in one part of his foot. He's focusing on it, and he's bothered by the comparison. The other leg is not like that. This one is like that. I keep noticing it. I wish it would stop being like that. I want it to go away, and it may not. So
it's just not positive. I know what the repercussions are when I talk negative to myself. So I allow it to happen, but then I try to reset and talk to it. And so I have the same problem. My right toe, so I can push my feet up. I can't grip. These big toe and the one next to it will not grip. This one won't even really move. So I could beat myself up all day, but guess what's going to do? The exact opposite of what I want it to do.
I was going to say, I never thought of it. I just don't do that. And I've never done it. So it's real hard for me to explain how I got to the point where I just don't do it. And I'm like, this is what it is. This is what it is. I'll just overcome it, and I won't give it enough. I won't give it all my energy. So what I'll do is I'll put my energy into other things, like the neuroplasticity will work around it, even though that's there. We'll work around
the word.
it. Yeah.
No, it's that whole thing when I first learned about it, I was like, wow, it geeks you out. You know what I mean? Like I remember learning about how the difference between a break and what we're going through, and how you have to get your brain to reconnect to the entire thing, and how absolutely crazy it is to try to explain that to someone. I won't sugarcoat that still to this day, I still struggle with that part of my foot, but I also try to be conscious of going, you know what? Keep going to your PT, keep going to your Pilates, do your stretching, which most of us don't do. There are exercises we can do at home to try to get it to wake up. It's just, I know for myself, when it doesn't work, I don't want to do it. but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't keep doing it.
Mm.
The one thing I wanted to also point out that we didn't discuss is
Yeah.
my hemorrhage was random.
Uh-huh.
There was nothing connected to it. They never were able to identify why it happened.
Wow.
So I wanted to make sure that whoever is listening to this, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. There's no genetic, there wasn't anything. It just was a random intracranial brain hemorrhage. So I want to emphasize that it can happen to anyone.
And do you feel that randomness was something contributed to you by your lifestyle and the kind of way that you went about life?
It was like I said, I was a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
Without me realizing that. Like I wasn't shifting, and I think I was continuing a lifestyle that was not able to continue in that manner. And this needed to happen for me to reset, reevaluate, repurpose, and, continue just developing and being an amazing person, and, having a better, more impactful and enjoyable life that I didn't realize I wasn't doing. So yeah, I absolutely take ownership in whatever led me to that point. And I'm I've said this since day one. There are parts that I don't like, but I don't take it for granted. And I actually appreciate the person I've developed and continue to develop and became as an outcome of it.
On that note,
yeah,
I'm going to wrap it up.
Yes.
And I want to thank you so much for reaching out and being on the podcast, sharing your story and making it about other people, and giving yourself an opportunity to also get this stuff off your chest and give yourself a conversation with somebody that gets you. And hopefully what we'll do is we'll organize some links to your socials and all that kind of stuff where other stroke survivors who have listened to this can reach out to you, and you guys can begin getting to know each other as well.
Yeah, that's exciting. It definitely, like I said, your podcast has opened me to a network of people that have been in my situation. And it just feels really good to realize that you're not by yourself. So I thank you very much for creating it. It's been really impactful and continues to be very impactful for me and helpful for me that I have an outlet of where I can feel like I'm a part of something, even though it's a crazy community. But I'm not alone. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And you're all the way in Australia. So, right, Australia?
Yep.
And you've done this, and think about, I've heard your podcast, and it doesn't matter where they are in the world, and where we're all connected now through your podcast. So I really, really value that, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining me on today's Recovery After Stroke podcast. Do you ever wish there was just one place to go for resources, advice, and support in your stroke recovery? Whether you've been navigating your journey for weeks, months, or years, I know firsthand how difficult it can be to get the answers you need. This road is both physically and mentally challenging, from reclaiming your independence to getting back to work to rebuilding your confidence and more. Your symptoms don't follow a rule book, and soon as you leave the hospital, you no longer have medical professionals on tap. I know for me, it felt as if I was teaching myself a new language from scratch with no native speaker in sight. If this sounds like you, I'm here to tell you that you're not alone, and there is a better way to navigate your recovery and build a fulfilling life that you love. I've created an inclusive, supportive, and accessible membership community called Recovery After Stroke. This all-in-one support and resource program is designed to help you take your health into your own hands. This is your guidebook through every step of your journey, from reducing fatigue to strengthening your brain to overcoming anxiety and more. To find out more and to join the community, just head to recoveryafterstroke.com. See you next time.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.